Dun, 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 dun. If you're watching the recording, check the timestamp in the description to see when we actually begin, because I'm going to hang out here and let some folks join us live for approximately 5 minutes. Sometimes it's 3 minutes, sometimes it's 8 minutes. That's what happens. But welcome. Hang out here with me for a bit before we officially begin. Welcome, John. Welcome, Vanessa. Welcome, Evie. Welcome, Kathleen. Welcome, Tom. Let's go to the come on. Where are you? There it is. Welcome, Chantel. Welcome, DM. Welcome, Joanne. Welcome, Hope. Welcome, James. Welcome, Nitin. I feel like I saw your name somewhere else recently. Welcome, Blossom. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Depending on where you're watching from, sometimes it doesn't let me see your name when you make comments. Just saying, so hello to those people who are saying hello, but I can't see who you are. Oh my goodness. 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 Turn that light down a little bit. We're coming up on the 5-minute mark. Welcome, Anika. Welcome, Jennifer. Okay. Welcome, Kathleen. Okay. 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 I'm really, really, really excited to do this episode today. But before we officially begin, I'd like to invite you to just be still with me for a moment, especially if you're going to hang out here for about an hour. Just allow ourselves to be here. Let this be a celebration of presence rather than trying to use this moment to get to some future moment. Sometimes I just wish I could just hang out here with you and not say anything and just kind of stare sweetly into the camera and pretend like I actually see you. Because it seems like that, yeah? Like as I'm looking right at the camera hole, it probably looks like I'm looking right at you. It can feel that way for me a little bit, that I'm looking at you. Because it's not uncommon that when I hold space for other people, even friends, a lot of the power isn't in anything I say. It's just the space, just the openness there. It's like it's a space that just says, I love you. A space that sees what you really are, even though you might be confused. That's okay. Let's just be here and breathe and watch it all disappear. All right, I think I'm ready to go. Have you invited your friends yet? Is that something that I should ask you to do? I guess there's no should about it. I just asked you. It's done. Please tell your friends about this space, about this offering, especially if you find value in it, because there's a high degree of probability that your friends would find value too. And then, because this is weird, but it seems required that if I'm going to continue to do this thing that I do, then more and more people need to find out about this thing that I do. Because it helps me to keep doing the thing that I'm doing. So thank you for your help in helping me do what I do. All right. Are you ready? Are you ready? Welcome to the program. This is the Holding Space podcast, where we are invited to open up, fear less, and love more. That's pretty simple. Welcome to the show. My name's Tiger. We are going to hang out here. I'm broadcasting live, and this is an hour-long opportunity where I'm going to dive into the topic today And then if there's questions from the live audience, we can get into those, and we will end with a super short and sweet guided meditation. And this show on Tuesdays is a bit of a follow-up to the Monday Insight Letter, where I pick a topic and then I write about it. Because as much as I like running my mouth, talking, I also like to write. And so I get to do both things. On Monday, I share a piece of writing about a topic. And then on Tuesday, I talk about the same topic. Usually. The topic for this week, the title of the Monday Insight Letter was, I'm afraid, insecure, and confused. Raise your hand if you know what that feels like. To be afraid, to feel insecure, and to just be confused. Well, fear not, my friends. Dun, da, da, da. Today we're going to dive into this experience of being afraid, insecure, and confused. And my intention, as usually, is to bring a softness to the whole issue. Maybe a bit of playfulness, where we can see that maybe it's not such a big deal, and maybe that's somewhere where we can just start. Because this topic, it speaks so much to the experience of being human. But another aspect of being human is the mind's capacity in its imagined brilliance to blow things way out of proportion, to think things are a problem that aren't really a problem, to think it knows how things should be. And in all of this thinking, all we're doing is running, not open to the possibility that maybe this is all okay. And what a trip that is. I mean, we've been through some crazy things, and it could be an absolute stretch for some people to be invited to see that maybe it's been going how it was. I don't know if I want to say meant. I don't want to say supposed. Maybe we can just say somewhere underneath it all, it's been okay. And what helps me to see that in all the shenanigans that I've been through in my life is, and I always talk about this because it's the foundation of spirituality as far as I'm concerned, our capacity to discern the difference between what I imagine to be happening and what's really happening. And throughout my whole crazy life, I can see that I imagined a lot of things were happening that simply were not happening. And even been points in my life where I've been invited to see that, and I would argue that it wasn't imagined, but then given some more time and some softness, I could see that it actually was imagined. That which was causing me pain. Because this is the thing. We are so quick to assume that the ways we are feeling are happening because of what's happening in the world or in our lives, not recognizing that our feelings, our emotions, our suffering is responding to how we perceive circumstance. It's responding to the stories we're telling. It's responding to what we are turning things into. Not wrong, not bad. It's just incredibly helpful to see that. Because you start to realize that this is being created on the inside. And if it's being created on the inside, then it's like it gives me something to actually work with. Because if it's created on the outside, then I have no control over it. unless I try and be violent with the outside and make it do what I want it to do. And it never stays that way anyway. So I'm in a constant battle. But when I see that it's being created on the inside, I can let go of the outside and I can come home and see what's actually happening. And ultimately what happens is I clarify the misunderstanding. I see where I don't see. I see where I'm assuming things I don't really know, where I think I know things I don't really know, where I'm creating meanings that aren't really there. And then in the examination of that, which is just coming back to reality, the problematic experience dissipates, fades away, evaporates, and I find myself much more grounded in the present moment. Anyway, that's a bit of a ramble, but it pertains. It always seems to pertain because it's always talking about the same thing, which is see what's true. See what's really happening. Release your grip on what you imagine to be happening. Okay, going forward, I'm going to reference a little bit Monday's insight letter and allow it to guide me a little bit on what I want to talk to. And I can't talk about everything that's in this letter. There's just too much good stuff. But let's see where we can start. First, we can just acknowledge the reality of such experiences of being afraid, insecure, and confused. And in fact, even if we might be in a good mood, if we got still and just got in touch with the authenticity of our humanness, we could probably find those areas where we are afraid, insecure, and confused. And let's notice that for a moment, even if we are in a good mood. It's like we don't have to not be in a good mood just because those things are there, which is interesting too, because it really shows you how do you see these things, right? Do you judge yourself for being afraid? Are you insecure about being insecure? Are you confused about being confused? These, of course, are all things that add intensity to these feelings. And so this is often, for me, the first step I go to when I'm struggling with these things, when I'm struggling with being afraid, when I'm struggling with feeling insecure, and when I'm struggling with being confused. It's like, am I making these things worse? Well, if fear is there, am I afraid of that fear? If insecurity is there, am I saying insecurity is wrong, which is being insecure about being insecure? And if I'm confused, do I think that that's wrong? Do I think that that's not allowed? Do you see the resistance? Do you see whenever we are pushing away what's moving within us, even though we think we might be getting away from it, we're actually adding intensity to it. In the sense that being afraid of being afraid, it's like you're telling your fear it's a problem, which is believing more in the fear. You're adding intensity to it. But if we can find a softness, a gentleness, a space of allowing that simply acknowledges reality, that fear is present, insecurity is present, confusion is present, then we can make a space that allows those things to be there and reduce the resistance. Now, naturally, in our adorable humanness, we are not always so concerned with creating space for these things. Right? Like, this is a terrible talk for the person who wants to find a way to never be afraid again, never feel insecure again, never feel confused again. Right? Like, I'm not going to present a path that helps you conquer these things. If anything, I'm going to invite a path of making peace with these things so that you don't have to battle them, so that you don't have to be in a fight. In fact, I'm hoping to lay down a case as to why these experiences of fear, insecurity, and confusion are actually there to help you. And naturally, if you're running from them, if you're hiding from them, if you don't want them, and they do show up and they're trying to help you, then you don't let them help you. You don't see what they're trying to show you, which is ultimately attempting to bring you back in alignment with what it is you're actually looking for. So we can start there. Let's bring some softness and reduce the resistance by simply acknowledging the truth of the matter, that those things are here. And I wrote this, and I want to mention it because I just really liked it. I proposed the question, what am I afraid of? Well, the mind's list is too long to write out here. If I were to ask my heart, the answer is much more concise and to the point. I fear the loss of what I'm holding on to, which, in some way, is the hope that I might one day never be afraid again. What am I insecure about? My goodness, so many things. Yet, when the heart speaks, it says, I feel as though something in me is fundamentally broken and not enough, and I'm undeserving of the love I both desperately and secretly crave. Raise your hand if you can relate to that. You know, and these things all just tie together. They tie together in such a simple way. The simplicity here, if you can look at your fear, and let's say the fundamental problem that seems to make living life difficult, the source of the pain, I wonder if you can see how deeply tied it is to a sense of inadequacy. I feel like I'm not enough. I feel like I'm broken. I feel like I'm missing something. I feel incomplete. And we can say that all of those things are the same thing, just expressed in slightly different verbiage. But just notice this. I mean, because on the surface, we can say the problem is that this project isn't working out. That's what's making me suffer. Is that really what it is? Or is it that the way that the project is going is interpreted in a way where it says you're not enough, and it hurts to believe you're not enough? Or we can say that I'm suffering because of this relationship and it's not doing what I want it to do. Is it really because of that? Or is it because the circumstance, the way it's interpreted, is one where it means you're not enough, unlovable, broken, XYZ? Do you see the 1,000 different stories we could tell about circumstance, which tries to justify the feeling that we're having? But if we look at the painful feeling that we're having, in so many ways, it's the same pain over and over and over again. Different story, but same pain. And what is that pain, which is also the fear? Because the fear, it's the contraction. It's the belief in loss. What is the something to be lost? It's worth and value. That's something that is enough, where we say, if only this happened, then I could be enough. Then I wouldn't be insecure. If only this happened, then I wouldn't be afraid. then I wouldn't lose what I'm holding on to. I can't playfully stress enough how important it is to see that our experiences of suffering are wrapped around this inadequacy. And there's so many examples, and I talk to people about this all the time, where whatever their struggle is, whether it's in parenting, whether it's in their family drama, if we just be present with it, the big issue is you're afraid you're not enough. And you're afraid that what you're going through means you're not enough. This is the issue. You know, in a beautiful and gentle way, another way of saying this that I for sure can relate to is a statement that somehow says, gosh, I don't like myself. I really don't like myself. And then this inadequacy, in the most fantastic display of human insanity, tries to fix it by rearranging life. If only I would look like this, then I could like myself. If only someone loved me, then I could like myself. If only I had this job, that job, this much money, these types of things, then I could love myself. Do we see the running around? Do we see the immense energy expenditure on trying to solve this problem of inadequacy in the world? And in trying to control other people? And again, welcome to the club, okay? You're not the only one. We're all doing this. This is part of being human, which is what's so beautiful about it, which is also what's so adorable about the fear, because so often we think that we're the only one. No, this is what everyone's doing. It's a game we're all playing, and it all has the same lesson, and the invitation is to see the lesson. But it's difficult to see the lesson when we're still confused about the potential of solving this problem in the world, right? Like, the more you believe the if only story, then the more difficult this is to solve. Which is like saying, the more you believe the solution is out there in the future, in your if only, then the less likely you're willing to look inside. The less likely you're willing to look at what's deeply true. Because something in you is saying, I don't want to see what's true. I want what I want. I don't care about this spiritual stuff. I want what I want, because if I got what I wanted, then I wouldn't feel insecure, which tells me you haven't been paying attention to your direct experience. How many things have you captured thinking it would once and for all solve the insecurity, only to find yourself right back where you started? Something's not working. We think that thing didn't work, and so we go look for another thing. And we get that thing, and then we're like, well, that one didn't work either, so we go find the other thing. Until we see that it's all the same thing, which is running, hiding, avoiding. We don't want to see what's deeply true. And it's understandable. It's understandable. Oh gosh, there's so many beautiful ways I can put this. You know what? And of course, naturally, I'm being super playful and gentle. But let me put it this way as a point of illustration. And I'm always just talking about my own experience. The running and running and running is looking for something that's not a real something. And so in that context, it's a lie. Do you see the correlation there? It's not true. So it's a lie that's running and running and running, trying to sustain itself. Now, The last thing that lie wants is to encounter the truth. Because what happens to a lie in the face of what's true? The lie disappears. So the lie does not want to encounter what's true. Now, the difficulty, of course, is when you don't know that it's a lie. And this is also the difficulty in human beings being human beings, is they don't see that what they're chasing is a lie. They don't see that who they think they are is a lie. They don't see that the story about themselves not being enough is a lie. It assumes that these lies are what's true, which is why it's chasing them, which is why it's holding on to them. And naturally, this is the space of spirituality that says, hey, relax. Let's look at what's really going on here. Let's see the truth. And I'm talking about spirituality beyond all the bells and whistles. Beyond all the spiritual attire. The hyperbole. I'm talking about the invitation that says, be still and know. Be still. Open up. Fear less. Love more. It's very, very simple. So I think I want to I'm reviewing the letter. Okay. Can we acknowledge this example where the lie, that which is not true, doesn't want to see what's true? If we can acknowledge that, then maybe we can also see that that which is not true is hiding from what is true. And this illustrates our adorable humanness in all its attempts to escape the meeting with truth, which is all the ways that it tries to hide. And, like I talked about in the beginning, where there's a fundamental revelation to be seen that my emotional experience isn't responding to what other people are saying, what other people are doing, what life is doing, what life isn't doing. My emotional response is responding to my perception and the stories that I'm telling. If I'm telling a story of separation, a story of me not getting what I want, a story of me not being enough, then I'll feel shitty. If I'm telling a story of wholeness, of wellness, of gratitude, these types of things, if that's what I'm seeing, then I'll feel that. This points to a very ancient truth, in some way articulated as it's all one and you are that one, that you're only experiencing what you are. Now, this is a disaster because it, in a way, demands, I'm going to use the word responsibility or accountability for your own experience. And if we don't want that, then we hide behind things like blame. We hide behind our beliefs and our opinions that the problem is out there, that says, no, I'm suffering because of XYZ. It's not because I'm confused. It's not because I'm misperceiving. It's because of XYZ. Now, naturally, the dilemma here is if I'm suffering because of XYZ, then I am the prisoner of XYZ, which also means I don't have to take responsibility for it. I can wait for somebody else to change, and then I can be free, which means I don't have to look and see what's true. And I would imagine for any human being that has experienced some degree of growth and expansion in their lives, it's quite obvious that your growth is the result of this sort of accountability, where you've realized you were assuming things that weren't true, realized that you were hiding behind blame, right? You made contact with the deeper truth that might have been unpleasant, but in some way it allowed you to deal with the root issue rather than hiding from it. And as you deal with it, then you're no longer a prisoner, which means you experience more freedom. This is the cycle over and over and over again, where we are exploring our confusions. We're exploring our fears. We're exploring our insecurities. And that exploration invites us to see things more clearly. And the more open we are to see what's true, then the faster we can clarify those things. And likewise, speaking to my own experience, of course, if I find that it's really, really difficult, then that just speaks to an aspect of myself that doesn't want to see the truth, right? Like I'm resisting it because I'm holding on to something so tightly. I'm so afraid of letting go of that something that I won't surrender to see more deeply. Let's see here. Okay. I've got just a little bit of time here left. And there's a lot I want to say. Gosh. The discovery is so beautifully beautiful and beautifully terrifying. And I'm wondering how I want to communicate this discovery. You know that spiritual phrase that in some ways says, see the truth of what you really are. In many ways, and over the past 13 years of talking about this stuff, this is something I've said quite a bit, that if you see the truth of what you are, it will resolve every ounce of conflict in your being. Which is also to say that if there's conflict in your being, if there's suffering innocently, you're not seeing the truth of what you are. And of course, see the truth of what you are is just inviting us to wake up to reality. In the spirit of that, I want to speak about this in a way that makes beautiful sense to me. And that is the realization that I don't exist. Maybe we just leave it there. But this was the big aha for me. that explained all of my suffering. And whenever I find myself back in that space of suffering, I ultimately end up realizing that I think I exist. And in thinking that I exist, I'm trying really hard to exist. And I can understand how, for a lot of people, that sentence makes no sense at all. I don't exist. But let me put it this way. And again, this recognition, this seeing comes with a depth of stillness to even make contact with this pointer. But let's just gently do an exercise here, where if you're willing, just take a snapshot of your frustration, your agitation, your irritation, your jealousies, your resentments, your unforgiveness, your suffering, and see that it all revolves around who you think you are. For some reason, this is just so epic to see right now for me. Just see this. And this is a deeply personal examination. And the way that we avoid this examination is we start trying to figure out other people's experiences. Like, we don't stay home in our direct experience and see how true this is. To see that all of this conflict, the inadequacy, the insecurity, it all stems from a narrative about who I am thought to be. Right? Like in this case, Tiger. I could say, I'm Tiger. Okay. What is that? Do you see that to say that I am this person, what you get is a narrative. What you get is a story of someone. And as much as you might think that you are this person, this story, can you see that this story has no reality outside of your own imagination of this character? I'm sure the mind wants to assume that I mean that it's wrong or it's bad or it shouldn't be. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying, can you see? Like, whatever you're complaining about, adorably, can you see that it revolves around your narrative about yourself? Can you see that your mental content all throughout the day is primarily focused on the character of who you think you are? Do you see that this is where all the struggle is? This is the fight. Now, the discovery, the holy shit moment, is in seeing that that character is not real. To see how much you think it's real in contrast to how unreal it is. In such a sense that that character only matters because you say it matters. But in saying it matters, you're under the assumption that it matters because it's real. You think it's who you really are. Like when somebody insults you, words come out of their mouth, and you give meaning to those words, you literally think it's about you. But what's not seen is you think it's about the narrative of you, the story of you, but you think that's you. And so as human beings, we live life from this character, believing we are this character, while completely missing out on the reality of what we are. The reality of what I am isn't the reality of a person or a story of someone. The reality of what I am is so beyond the mind's ability to articulate. It's so gloriously connected to what everything is. Put it this way, as an illustration. There's a leaf on a tree, and it's blowing in the wind, and it gets really scared, and it thinks, oh, I'm just this little leaf. What the leaf doesn't realize is that it is the tree. The leaf had a thought that it was a leaf and believed the thought, not realizing that in the most real way, it's not a leaf, it's a tree. It's not separate from the tree. And the moment it realizes it is the tree, and then there's nothing left to be afraid of, because what is its fear? That it's separate from the tree. That's its fear. And as a human being, that's the insecurity, is I'm afraid that I'm separate from life, right? I'm afraid I'm not enough. That's the misunderstanding. The misunderstanding is I think I'm something that I'm not, and that something that I'm not is not enough to be whole and complete. And here's the twist. Here is the twist. And again, I'm using words to point to something. It is so incredibly true that who you think you are is not enough. As a way of pointing as well, it's incredibly true that who you think you are in the context of being something real, who you think you are is broken. Meaning that it's not real. So broken being a word that points, not to define. What I'm attempting to illustrate here is that the sensation of inadequacy, I'm not enough, is actually truth speaking, but we don't want it to be true. We want our story to be real. We want who we think we are to be real. And the more you try and take what is not real and make it real, the more there will be a struggle, which amplifies the feeling of inadequacy, right? The more you try to be real, the more you see that you're not, which is why so often as people try to conquer their inadequacy, they just end up feeling more inadequate, right? This speaks to experiences where maybe someone's a high achiever or an athlete or whatever. It shows up in lots of different ways, but we're fueled by an inadequacy to succeed, thinking that if we succeed, it will fix the inadequacy. But the more you succeed, the inadequacy just becomes more pronounced. You never actually get to where you're going, so you try even harder. You try and win even more. And it's funny because the world celebrates you as if, yay, you're finding yourself. Yay, you're finding yourself. But really, that's not the experience for the one who's going through that. And this is blatantly obvious in the way that the world celebrates celebrity. Right? We think that, oh, that person's famous. They must not feel insecure, right? Because they got the thing that I think is the prize. And so I'm going to celebrate them because they got there, but yet they didn't get anywhere, as they've found out. So it's a beautiful opportunity to relax a little bit and see what's really going on in this apparent maze of human experience. That what we are trying to conquer, what we're trying to run away from, the insecurity, is we're actually trying to get away from what's true, which is who I think I am doesn't really exist. Now, again, the more you think you are who you think you are, then the more offended you are by that statement. But the more you see it too, then the more funny it is. And also, the more you can laugh at yourself when you take yourself seriously. You see that? Right? It's like the one who cannot laugh at themselves really sees themselves as that character. Right? And they're holding on to that character tightly, taking themselves seriously, which is an extension of a fear that doesn't want to disappear, essentially, wants to be important, wants to be real. And the whole spiritual invitation is effectively that. And again, I'm going to speak in spiritual / religious words to make a point. That the point of spirituality is to wake up and see that you don't exist, that it's only God that exists. It's to see that life is not about you, who you think you are. Life is about the whole thing. Life is about everything. Which in some other way shows you that you are others and others are you. And to really see that opens up a floodgate of love for all of life and all of humanity. But again, to the degree that we are captured in that spell of self-narrative, the more difficult these things are to see. Understandable. And it's not for everyone to see. It's not a requirement that you should see. But it is a opportunity to see when the one is ready to see that. And so often we become ready to see that as we exhaust ourselves through the suffering of the narrative. Because in actuality, the suffering, the pain, is an alarm mechanism that's trying to wake you up from the dream of who you think you are. Because if you don't, my goodness, you just create a mess. And this is something that I enjoy watching in my own silly awareness, that when there is fear, when there's insecurity, when there's confusion, the propensity of the mind to become violent in how it sees other people. It sees other people as in the way. It sees other people as wrong. It sees other people as XYZ because my character didn't get what it wanted. And what my character wanted ultimately was to be real, and somebody else got in the way. Right? My character wanted to be validated as real, but yet something happened that interrupted that validation. And that's what violence is there for, to regain some sense of control over validating a self-narrative. Because if one saw that they are not the narrative, if they saw that who they think they are doesn't exist, there would be no violence. And so life has this beautifully set up that's inviting us to wake up. And my God, it's just so brilliantly designed in such a way that these experiences, such as fear, insecurity, and confusion, they're not wrong. They're gifts that are attempting to help you see something. But the question is there openness there to see it? And if not, no worries. All right, friends. I went kind of long, if that's a real thing. But if you have any questions, those that are watching live, now's the time to ask them. Sita asks, isn't the reality of who we are both divine being and human, not just one or the other? Well, as a way of speaking, I can say we're neither, because those are ideas, right? There's divine being, that's an idea, and everyone has a different image in their mind of what that means. And then there's human, and everyone has a different idea of what that means. And so what are those things outside of the mind's interpretation of them? What are those things outside of the mind's image of those things? And the reality is they're nothing. They're just ideas. This speaks to the mind's fundamental obstacle, is that it operates within duality based on comparison. So it only knows one thing in comparison to another thing. But it doesn't actually know those things. It just labels them to help it navigate. It says, okay, well, there's this and there's this. This is big, but it's big compared to this, which is small. But if I swap out the comparison, what was big is now small. And so what is it really? It's neither. It just is. And so in one aspect, to go straight to it, what we are is not this and not that. You could say we are this and we're also that, but we're everything. So of course we're this and that, but we're not only this and only that. We're the whole thing. But granted, as we navigate in our humanness, still living in the mind, these concepts can be helpful, right? Like the concept of I'm divinely human, or I'm, what'd you say? Divine being and human. I can look at those and that brings a greater sense of wholeness, where it's like, oh, I don't have to reject this part of myself, this aspect of what I am. It's like, I'm also this, and I'm also this, and I'm also this. This helps bring us back. So yes, those things can be helpful, but at the same time, it's so easy to create another identity in those ideas. All right, we do that with spirituality all the time. It's like, oh, I'm spiritual now. Well, what is that? And the answer to what is that is just going to come up with another idea. And if you identify yourself with an idea, you are identifying yourself with that which is imaginary, because everything in the mind is imaginary. And so there is an aspect of, let's just say, aliveness that doesn't exist in the mind. There's no label for it. There's no name for it. You can't identify it as a concept, but it's so fundamentally real. And this is the doorway. It's pointing you towards what's real. And one of the aspects of what's real is seeing what's not real. And so it's not so much figuring out what is real. It's seeing what's not real and dropping that. And as you keep dropping what is unreal, you get closer to what is real. But you don't go looking for what's real as a concept. Jennifer says, Tiger, once you said that once you wake up, you realize everyone else already has woken up. Could you please explain a little more around this if you have time? I would love to talk about that. That's one of my favorites. Oh my goodness. You know, maybe we should just do an episode on that. But as a pointer, I love this pointer because it cuts through a lot of the nonsense. And the pointer being that when you wake up, you will see that the whole world was already awake and you were the only one sleeping. And this is terrible for the one who's waiting for the world to wake up. Okay, Jennifer, we'll do an episode on that. And I'm going to playfully plan on doing that one next week. And I'm going to write about it too. That'll be fun. That's my intention. Let's see how it goes. All right, lovelies. Let me see if there's any questions over here. We're going to do a super short and sweet guided meditation. Before I do that, let me just chill for a second and see if there's anything else that's swimming around there. I appreciate you just being here. Somehow we're doing this together. I love that this wouldn't happen unless there were people here participating. Would you like to join me for a super short and sweet guided meditation? Does that sound good? We will call this meditation Relax. You're not real. Let's begin. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Let's just be here, rested in this moment. This isn't serious. This isn't anything other than whatever it ends up being. So let's let it be that. Welcome. I'm going to invite you to breathe with me here and just allow ourselves to come back to this moment. let's take 3 big but natural deep breaths. Can you notice the mind's noise falling away? Can you notice that we might think there's 10,000 things happening, but yet it's just you and me here, right now? Just see that. Just see that there's so much the mind thinks is going on. But yet, what's really going on is just this. Presence. The space of this moment. It's empty. It's quiet. Do you see the reality of this in contrast to the mind that thinks about reality? We don't have to fight it. We don't have to control it. We can just see, oh my goodness. This same contrast exists in the difference between who you think you are and what you really are. In the same way that you can have 10,000 thoughts about life, that's not life. Those are ideas. Those are pictures. It's not the real thing. It's not even close. Do you see that you can have 10,000 thoughts about who you are? And yet there's the reality of what you are. And if you're open to see it, maybe gently, we can see that all the anxiety, all of the frustration, all of the suffering, it's wrapped around who you think you are. It's wrapped around the narrative. Not wrong, not bad. It's just an innocent misunderstanding. Confusing yourself for an idea, for a picture, rather than being here right now with the reality of what you are. Can we breathe into this relaxation that lets go of the story you have about yourself? whether it's a positive or a negative one. You can pick it up later. But let's relax into what's real. There's no seriousness here in the reality of what you are. There's nothing you can lose about the reality of what you are. And there's nothing to fear in the reality of what you are. Let's take 3 more deep breaths and just drop in a little bit deeper, letting the mind go and coming home to right now. Let's breathe. Relax. Who you think you are isn't real. Thank you for meditating with me today. That was beautiful. Okay. I think we're done. That was a good one. Oh, donations. Thank you. I see that. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thanks, Goddess Mo. Thanks, Sita. Thanks, Diane. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Blossom. Okay, I'm going to hang out here for another minute in case people just want to keep sending donations, because that's cool. Thanks, Elizabeth. It's funny because if enough people buy me a cup of coffee, then that cup of coffee ends up paying my rent. Nice work, team. And that means I can spend more time just doing this stuff. You know, that's my playful fantasy. I mean, because granted, I've got to find ways to do this work and make money in the process and pay the people who help me. I've got full-time people who help support my work, but we got to find ways to pay them and pay myself. But I have this playful fantasy where it's like, I wish I could just do some live videos every week, and somehow that would just provide, rather than doing these other creative things that we're doing. But I say that playfully because I also enjoy these other things that we're doing. So it's fine. Thanks, Dee. Thanks, Evie. Thanks, Elizabeth. All right, I'm going to bounce out and eat some food. Appreciate you. Tell your friends, please. Tell your friends. Let them know that this is a really supportive space with some beautiful insights that invite us to open up, fear less, and love more. All right. Bye-bye.